Maria Elena Santos and Omar Al-Fahim looked like the perfect newlyweds. She, a hopeful Filipina bride chasing her dreams in Dubai, and he, a wealthy businessman promising her a life of luxury. But within hours of their lavish wedding, the fairy tale turned into horror when Maria was found dead in their honeymoon suite and Omar vanished without a trace. What unfolded next shocked an entire city and left investigators grappling with a chilling mystery of love, betrayal, and a missing groom who may not have been the killer after all. Maria Elena Santos had always been described as a dreamer. Born in a small coastal town in the Philippines, she grew up watching her parents struggle to make ends meet. Life was simple, sometimes too simple for her restless heart. From an early age, she promised herself that one day she would find a way to rise above poverty and create a better life. Like many young Filipinas, she decided to work overseas. When an opportunity came to move to Dubai as a hotel receptionist, she grabbed it without hesitation, convinced that this was the first step toward the future she wanted. In Dubai, Maria quickly adjusted to the city's dazzling lifestyle. She lived modestly in a shared apartment with fellow workers, sending money back home every month. Yet beneath her hard-working, disciplined exterior, she longed for something more than just survival. She dreamed of falling in love, of building a family, of experiencing the fairy tale life she had only seen in movies. It was during this period that she crossed paths with Omar Al-Fahim. He was everything she was not: wealthy, confident, and admired by many. Their worlds could not have been more different, but Omar became enchanted by Maria's gentle nature and soft-spoken charm. What began as casual conversations during coffee breaks turned into lavish dates at fine restaurants. Omar showered her with attention she had never known before, and Maria allowed herself to believe she had finally found happiness. Despite whispers from her friends who warned her about cultural differences and the weight of tradition, she chose to trust him. Months later, Omar proposed in grand style, presenting her with a diamond ring that sparkled as brightly as her dreams. Their wedding was planned as a union of two cultures, celebrated with elegance and joy. To outsiders, it looked like the perfect love story, a poor Filipina finally living her dream. What no one knew was that this fairy tale would end before it had even begun. Maria's life in the Philippines before Dubai was not something she often spoke about. Behind her smile and quiet confidence was a past she kept carefully hidden. Years earlier, when she was only 19, she had fallen deeply in love with a young man from her hometown. Their relationship was passionate, filled with promises of marriage and a future together. Maria believed wholeheartedly that he was the one she would spend the rest of her life with. But like many young romances, it was not built to last. The man betrayed her trust, leaving her heartbroken and carrying a burden she could never erase. When the relationship ended, Maria carried scars that were invisible to the eye but impossible to forget. By the time she moved to Dubai, Maria had decided that her past was best left behind. She rarely mentioned her first love and never spoke of the intimacy they had shared. It was not out of shame, but rather out of fear. She knew that in conservative societies, a woman's purity was often placed on a pedestal, and to fall short of that expectation could mean rejection or disgrace. When she met Omar, his traditional family background made the silence even more necessary. To reveal the truth would almost certainly end their relationship, and Maria could not bear the thought of losing him. Her friends sometimes sensed her unease. A few warned her to be honest before the wedding, reminding her that secrets always have a way of resurfacing. But Maria convinced herself that love would conquer tradition, that Omar's affection was stronger than cultural expectations. She buried her fears, telling herself that the past was behind her and that what truly mattered was the life they were about to begin together. Unbeknownst to her, that unspoken truth would soon shape the darkest chapter of her story. The wedding night was supposed to be the culmination of everything Maria had dreamed of. After months of planning, the ceremony had unfolded like a fairy tale. Surrounded by laughter, music, and blessings, she felt like the luckiest woman alive as she and Omar walked hand in hand into their luxurious hotel suite in downtown Dubai. The room was decorated with rose petals, candles, and champagne, a perfect setting for a new beginning. Maria imagined this would be the first night of a long and happy marriage. At first, the atmosphere was tender. Maria tried to push away the nervousness that lingered in her heart. But as the hours passed, Omar's excitement shifted into suspicion. He noticed details Maria had hoped would go unnoticed, subtle signs that she was not the untouched bride he believed she was. For Omar, who held rigid ideas about honor and purity, the realization struck like a violent blow. What was meant to be a night of intimacy quickly turned into a storm of anger. Maria felt the weight of her secret crashing down on her. She had feared this moment for so long, but she had prayed it would never come. Instead of a new chapter, she now faced the nightmare she had dreaded. Omar's sense of betrayal grew uncontrollable. The man who had once looked at her with adoration now looked at her with fury. The suite, once filled with romance, became a prison where fear consumed every breath. In those final moments, Maria's dreams unraveled in silence. Behind closed doors, the fairy tale ended in violence. What the world saw as a celebration of love had turned into tragedy within a single night, leaving only a chilling stillness in the very room that was meant to symbolize hope and new beginnings. The sun rose over Dubai with its usual brilliance, but inside the hotel suite where Maria and Omar had spent their wedding night, darkness lingered. Hours passed, and no sound came from behind the locked door. The staff, accustomed to newlyweds sleeping in late, thought little of it at first. But as the morning stretched on, concern grew. Calls to the room phone went unanswered, and breakfast left outside remained untouched. By early afternoon, the silence had become unsettling. When a housekeeper was finally sent to check, she hesitated before unlocking the door. What she found inside would haunt her forever. The suite, once glowing with the remnants of celebration, was now eerily disordered. The scent of roses mixed with something metallic and sharp. Beneath the torn bridal sheets, Maria's body lay still, her wedding dress crumpled around her like a cruel reminder of what should have been a night of happiness. There were bruises, signs of a struggle, evidence that her final hours had been filled with terror. Omar was nowhere to be found. The discovery sent shockwaves through the hotel. Guests whispered in horror as police sealed off the scene. Photographers documented every detail, and investigators moved with grim precision. The story spread rapidly, first through the staff, then across the city, until it reached international headlines. The tale of a young Filipina bride murdered on the very night she was married captured both outrage and sorrow. For the Filipino community in Dubai, the tragedy felt deeply personal. Maria was one of their own, a woman who had left her homeland with hopes of a brighter future. Now her body lay lifeless, her dreams shattered before they even began. The search for answers had only just started, but already, suspicion pointed in one clear direction: her missing husband. As soon as Maria's body was discovered, the hunt for Omar became the top priority. Police reviewed security footage from the hotel and found him leaving in the early hours, wearing a simple jacket, his face expressionless. He walked swiftly to the parking area, entered his luxury car, and disappeared into the night. What struck investigators most was his calmness. There was no panic, no hesitation, only a deliberate retreat into the darkness. Roadblocks were set up across the city, and airports were placed on alert. Rumors swirled that Omar had already boarded a private jet, slipping away before anyone realized what had happened. For days, detectives followed a trail of clues. Eventually, his car was located abandoned near the edge of the desert. Inside were his wallet, phone, and watch, as if deliberately left behind. The scene suggested two possibilities. Omar had fled further into the desert, or someone else had staged his disappearance. Just when it seemed certain Omar was the killer, a startling discovery shifted the investigation. DNA analysis from the hotel room revealed traces of another male presence. It wasn't Omar's, and it wasn't linked to any hotel staff. The evidence hinted that a third person had been in the suite the night Maria died. Suddenly, the case no longer appeared straightforward. Was Omar the murderer who had carefully covered his tracks, or had he stumbled upon something he wasn't meant to see? The possibility of a hidden intruder added layers of mystery to an already shocking crime. Investigators now faced two questions: who had really killed Maria, and where had Omar gone? With every passing day, the story grew darker, and the line between suspect and victim blurred. What seemed like a crime of passion was turning into something far more complex. Months slipped by, and the case of Maria Elena Santos refused to fade from public memory. Despite the efforts of Dubai authorities, Omar was never located. His disappearance became as much a mystery as Maria's murder itself. Some believed he had escaped to another country under a false identity, while others speculated that he had died in the desert, his body swallowed by the endless dunes. Without proof, both theories remained nothing more than speculation. The revelation of a second man's DNA in the hotel room only deepened the confusion. Investigators scoured records, questioned hotel employees, and examined every guest who had checked in that night. Yet the identity of this unknown figure remained hidden. He had entered Maria's life like a shadow, leaving only fragments of evidence and questions with no answers. Theories multiplied. Was he a stranger, a stalker, or someone from Maria's past who had followed her to Dubai? With each possibility came another chilling scenario. For Maria's family in the Philippines, the agony never lifted. When her body was flown home, she was dressed in her wedding gown, the same gown that should have marked the happiest moment of her life. The funeral was filled with mourners, many of them women who saw their own struggles reflected in Maria's fate. Her coffin, pure white, stood as a heartbreaking symbol of innocence lost and justice denied. The case became a story whispered among migrant communities, a cautionary tale about secrets, tradition, and the dangers of trust. To this day, Maria's murder remains unsolved, leaving behind a haunting legacy of unanswered questions. Was it a crime of rage, an act of revenge, or something far more sinister? The truth lies buried in silence, and the mystery continues to cast its long, unsettling shadow.